Welcome to the KOMO Sports End Zone podcast with KOMO Sports Director Niko Tamurian and Najee Moye.
Well, how's it going, everybody? It is week 2 now in the NFL. I'm Niko Tamurian with Najee Moye. And Najee, we've got a lot to break down on the Pittsburgh Steelers. My good friend Jenna Harner, who covers the Steelers for WXPI, is going to join us in about 60 seconds. Before we get to that, boy, oh boy, listen, every game matters. It's every week, but coming off the way the Seahawks lost to the Niners, you know, you got to make sure you can bounce back. You got to make sure one loss doesn't turn into multiple, right?
That was one. I will say this, and I don't want to be dramatic. As all my friends know, I'm probably the most dramatic person that you'll ever meet. But that was, as far as week 1 losses go, it was a hard watch.
Yeah.
It was definitely a hard watch. You know, the Seahawks coming back had an opportunity to score against the hated Niners. And let me tell you, Sam Darnold with fumbling off of Abe Lucas's back, essentially, after he was pushed, after Abe Lucas was pushed into Sam Darnold by Steelers defender. I think it was TJ Watt.
It was Nick Bosa.
It was Nick Bosa.
Yeah.
Nick Bosa. Yeah, I'm already thinking about
Pittsburgh
already.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, definitely one of the hard watches. I ended up watching that game in Pioneer Square.
Okay.
With a couple buddies, with the one Niners fan in the entire bar. Hard watch. Hard to be in the room, let me tell you.
It's a game that they probably didn't have business winning in some ways, right? From the way the offense performed, but the defense made plays and made sure they stayed in it, and they had a chance.
And that's the thing. Even when your offense doesn't have its best game, obviously, you want your defense to be able to step up. And the Seahawks defense admittedly did at times, and then also at times maybe not so much. So
2 picks,
two picks, but also a couple instances when the secondary was just kind of like, what?
Yeah,
so
drive.
It's the first game. I think teams all around the league are kind of just thinking first game. It was a wacky week, honestly.
Yeah.
When you look at week 1 around the league, but we're looking forward to Pittsburgh going across country.
Right. Well, Mike McDonald talked about that today. It's something like he always preaches. For some reason, last year the Seahawks were 3-7 or 3-6 rather away from Lumen Field. Yet they won 7 games on the road. Yeah, it's kind of crazy.
It's kind of odd thinking, we have this big home field advantage, here at Lumen Field with the 12s and all that, but just knowing that the Seahawks kind of played more like a road warrior type of game. I'm thinking about the Atlanta game specifically.
Exactly.
Actually, but having situations like the Giants game kind of happened at the end of last year where things were just like, what's going on? But I'm just happy to be talking football with you, honestly, and I'm excited to see because the Seahawks are playing a Steelers team that really kind of, I almost want to say, surprised a lot of people with their week 1 performance. When you look at them playing the Jets, no one expected the Jets.
I thought they'd win.
Well, no one expected the Jets Steelers game to be 34-32.
Maybe, yeah.
That was a shock for me personally, honestly.
I thought maybe for me I was a little surprised it was that close. But with that said, let's bring on our Steelers expert here. We really appreciate Jenna's time. There you are, Jenna. How are you?
I'm wonderful. How are you guys? Thanks so much for having me. I'm so excited to be able to talk about this matchup with you guys.
Yeah, and it's a matchup that's a lot of fun because, we were just talking about last week's game, so we want to get your take on that. Obviously, everybody's talking about DK against the Seahawks, and it's probably going to be all cordial and warm-ups and stretches on the field. And as we know with DK, probably anything less than that maybe after. Like, he'll control it, but there'll be some trash talking. And it's a game that this early in the season, even Seahawks head coach Mike McDonald said it's just so impossible to look at because, Steelers are doing different things, even if Mike Tomlin's been there forever. So let me just open it up with putting a bow on all that and saying, let's talk about the Steelers in week 1, that game against the Jets, kind of a thriller. What did you see on that? What's your takeaways, and kind of how do you see that parlaying into week 2 here against the Seahawks?
Yeah, kind of building up what Najee said, but it was unexpected in the way that we saw this offense come out because we hadn't seen this Steelers offense. Our dog's just coming in. He wants to talk about, you're like, why did the door open? He loves just popping in during podcasts here. I promise he'll be quiet. Everyone say hi to Zeke. But I don't think a lot of people expected the Steelers offense to do what they did and for Aaron Rodgers to throw 4 passing touchdowns because there were so many question marks this offseason because of we didn't see Aaron Rodgers play it all in the preseason. We didn't see DK Metcalf play it all in the preseason. Very few of the offensive starters, aside from the offensive line, really got meaningful preseason in-game reps. So there were a lot of question marks coming into just what this team was going to look like. Now, there are definitely some problem areas we saw after week one, i.e. the run defense and all of those problems carrying over from a season ago. And that was something this offseason after the Steelers just got smashed in the mouth by Baltimore in the playoffs to end their season, giving putting up, I believe it was 184 rushing yards to Derrick Henry alone, just insane, stupid numbers. That had been a big focus of this Steelers team. Their defense this offseason, they went out, they drafted Derek Harmon in the first round, defensive lineman. He's been dealing with an injury, so he'll be out this week already still. So he missed last week and this week. He was a big part of what they did in the preseason, but the defense, run defense particularly, as Zeke really just wants to say hi here, did not look
good. You can say hi to Zeke. I got 3 dogs at home.
We're fans of Zeke's.
Zeke is a gem. But yeah, so I think, I don't think a lot of people anticipated the Steelers offense having the performance they did and the Steelers defense not being able to stop the run. But at the end of the day, the Steelers came out with a win that gave fans, from what all of the fans told us, just absolute insane heart attacks, especially with Chris Boswell kicking that 60-yard field goal. The man is absolute money there. But the Steelers came into this week saying, yeah, there's a lot we want to work on. It's nice to be able to do so when it was with a win, but there are so many areas that they want to clean up and fix and focus, and especially coming into this week against a tough team that they know the Seahawks are going to bring on come Sunday.
I have to point out before we get to Najee's next question here, there is right behind me across from KOMO Plaza, there is a Zeke's Pizza. So if you and the husband and the dog ever make it to Seattle, we have to make an introduction there.
We'll have to. Zeke, you like pizza, right?
It's a great pizza.
Of course you do.
It's a great pizza place right next door, honestly, and it's just one of my favorites, actually. I love Zeke's Pizza. Yeah. You mentioned Aaron Rodgers not playing a lot in the preseason, and he is of advanced age, as I'll say. 4 touchdown passes, didn't see that coming, honestly. Tell me, what have you seen from him just in the past week or since he's been to Pittsburgh? A lot of people didn't even imagine him playing football at all this year,
No, his demeanor has been so interesting because obviously you see him in the national spotlight and you see the person he is there. But here in Pittsburgh and just in the conversations that we've had with him, specifically in the locker room, he's been very insightful. He's been very thoughtful. There are certain players, as I'm sure you guys deal with, where, there are guys that just truly don't want to talk, truly don't want to give answers, just kind of give you one word answer things. I really appreciate in every week and post games when we meet with Rodgers, kind of the intentionality of what he says, especially after last week's game. And of course, yes, after a win, he's going to be happier, but he was giving us little anecdotes. He was giving us insight into DK particularly. I thought it was really funny that the two of them were roommates. Mike Tomlin made them suite mates during training camp. The Steelers go away to Latrobe. It's about 45 minutes away. They go to a college campus for training camp. DK and Aaron Rodgers are suite mates. Rodgers joked with us all training camp about sharing a bathroom, but he said way back when he had told DK, he's like, hey, during game weeks, Monday or Tuesday of the game week, give me kind of a scouting report of the team. Give me what's going to work against them, you think, what we do well against them that's going to, what we're going to be able to exploit, what you think their biggest area of weakness is, kind of all those things. And then Rodgers told us, he kind of forgot about it. Well, last Tuesday, ahead of the Jets game, DK sends him this really long text message just kind of breaking things down. And you saw from Rodgers just kind of the respect that obviously DK comes in and he carries, but the respect that I think in that specific move, that DK made, where he's just kind of earning that trust. You knew that the chemistry between the two was going to develop, but it's been really fascinating to kind of see their relationship develop, and also just the way that Rodgers talks about him, talks about his teammates. He was kind of also taking a lot of ownership, especially this past weekend. The Steelers offensive line did not play well. And today when we spoke with Aaron Rodgers, he kind of said, my back was hurting a little bit. I had some tightness. So, I kind of ran into a couple of those sacks. How much truth that holds, I don't know, but it just kind of felt like, he's kind of in this role. He really enjoys it here from what we've seen so far. Obviously, you're going to do so when you're winning and when there's hope, but it's the preseason and all the excitement stuff. But it's been really interesting to kind of just watch who Aaron Rodgers is here in Pittsburgh.
And yeah, I kind of wanted to piggyback off that because we had the Seahawks in their press conferences earlier today. Everybody, especially head coach Mike McDonald, just raved about Rodgers and how he is the perfect fit for that Steelers system. And I think that, how you apply to this matchup is, okay, by and large, the Seahawks defense in week 1 bent but didn't break. Meanwhile, they gave up decent amount of yards, 384 to my recollection, but then, they had a couple interceptions to stop the Niners in their tracks. They had a blocked field goal, things of that nature. But here we are going against the Steelers team where they, put up 34 and made it a track meet with the Jets. In your analysis and talking to the players, we love seeing you on the clips on social media, talking to the guys, including Rodgers. How do you see this shaking out in that asset of the game, meaning the Seahawks defense against this Steelers offense that has a lot of new faces on it?
Yeah, that's kind of been the big matchup I've been really looking into this week, just because you do expect the Steelers' run defense to be a little bit better. But on the offensive side, it's going to be, can they be consistent here? Can they keep up the performance of what they did a week ago against the Jets? I don't know if this team is going to continue to put up 30 plus points. And it's also very new to Pittsburgh in the last handful of years. It's kind of obviously been the quarterback carousel, but I do look, one of the biggest matchups to me is going to be the way that the Seahawks bring simulated pressure and how Rodgers and his offensive line are really going to be able to defend against that. I've been asking a couple of the offensive linemen, the Steelers offensive line is really young too. So we were talking to some of these young guys in the locker rooms, like, how do you game plan against us? What's different in the way that Seattle brings pressure versus the way that the Jets brought pressure? And they really said it just kind of comes down to their assignments and being so incredibly sound and relying on their knowledge of, hey, we saw this on tape. We know what to expect here. Let's make sure that we execute in the way that we can, so that not only they can protect their quarterback, but they can give Aaron Rodgers more time to throw, because when he had time to throw, that's when you saw a lot of those big plays, whether it was to DK and DK had a bunch of yards after the catch, whether it was the touchdown to Calvin Austin, the touchdown to Ben Skowronek. Like, when Rodgers had time last week, good things happened. But I think it's going to be this chess match. And obviously the Steelers so familiar with Mike Macdonald, with him being in Baltimore. The 2 years, I believe, the Ravens were, I know at least 2023, they were the number one defense. Were they 2022 too? I'm trying to remember the exact specifics.
I believe it was close. And the big thing with Mike Macdonald on that front is when he started in Baltimore, which it was a little bit kind of shaky. And then they made the trade for Roquan and it became a different animal, which led into 23. So maybe in the back half, I think they were. But yeah, that's a great point. Something that off the top of my head didn't jump out, that Mike Tomlin is quite familiar with what Mike Macdonald has to do, right?
Yeah, no, and Mike Tomlin talked a little bit about that, and some of the players too have talked about that, especially some of the guys here on the Steelers that either played within the Ravens system or, just being in the AFC North and having those familiarities with one another. But that to me is going to be a really crucial part of all of this. Also, how can the Steelers get their run game going? Because this has been something I feel like we've spoken about here in Pittsburgh ad nauseum for the last handful of years. And now with Jaylen Warren being kind of the guy, the Steelers also love Kenneth Gainwell. They've been kind of working him outside a little bit too. He plays a very interesting role, but he still got a decent amount of the reps against the Jets last week. And then the rookie Caleb Johnson. How can the Steelers offensive line get the push, and how can these guys really hit the holes? That was something they worked on a lot in practice today. How are they going to be able to run the football and open more things up? That's going to be a really interesting part of this, because they did not run the ball well at all last week, and that showed against the Jets. Can they bounce back a little bit? But I am just, the Seahawks defense to me is a very intriguing puzzle of pieces. And I think the Steelers continue to acknowledge that it's a tough test here. They know that it's going to be a really tough test against these guys.
From what I'm hearing, it sounds like there's a lot of familiarity between the two teams, whether it's DK Metcalf texting Aaron Rodgers about just everything that Seahawks does. That's what it sounds like. And then Mike Tomlin just being very familiar with Coach McDonald's just overall defensive idea. And that's one thing also that the Seahawks are kind of looking at, how to get their run game going, because the Seahawks did try to run quite a bit against the Niners, and the box score looked a lot like the games last year where you said guys running for. It just the struggle was real. So who are some Steelers players that you think on offense and defense that you think are really gonna end up having? I mean, pick some game busters here.
That's putting her on the spot.
It's easy to say Aaron Rodgers, but if the running game gets going, is it going to be Kenneth Gainwell? I mean, no one in Seattle is kind of expecting that, I feel like.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting, I think, with the running backs and kind of the division of labor, just what we've seen. Because again, we didn't see a whole lot of rookie Caleb Johnson. He was in there for some plays, but it really was kind of a heavy dose of Jaylen Warren and Kenneth Gainwell. So I expect Kenneth Gainwell to probably hit some big holes and make maybe a big play or two. But also, again, just there hasn't been this consistency with the run offense. I also know this feels like kind of an easy answer here, but I think DK is going to have a big game. I think the Steelers are going to scheme a lot to get him open. open. And when we were talking with him in the locker room, one of the guys behind the scrum passed by and just said, DK 250 this weekend. So I don't think that entirely would ever happen. I think that these guys know that they're going to want to do everything they can to give DK the opportunity to have good games. Still obviously hasn't caught his first touchdown pass as a Steeler yet. Defensively, watch out for Alex Highsmith and TJ Watt. Both edge rushers just are so vicious in what they bring. Of course, TJ Watt obviously being who he is. TJ Watt, I have to look back at the stats. I don't believe he recorded a sack. He had some quarterback pressures. I have to look at the specifics. It's kind of off the top of my head right now, but I expect both Watt and Highsmith to really look to get after Sam Darnold. This defensive front for the Steelers had a big challenge last week in Justin Fields and his mobility. That was something they talked about so much. Darnold poses a little bit of a different style of play. He's not, while he is mobile, I don't think he's to the level of what Justin Fields is. So I'm going to be really intrigued to kind of see how they scheme things up to get these guys to really rush after the quarterback and look to take down Sam Darnold.
Yeah, and it's great you mentioned that, because two things I'm watching the first one starts with DK. We know a lot of the time he's going to be matched up with Reek Woolen. Reek is, a guy that was drafted in 2022. He's a unique talent, and I'm a big fan of Reek, but he's 6'4". He ran like a 4.2 40 when he was getting drafted. So size alone, he makes sense to match up with DK. Devin Witherspoon on the other side is about 5'9" or 5'10", so it's a little bit different when you're talking about somebody of Metcalf's physical stature. There's two interesting points I want to make there, in the idea that we used to watch those guys butt heads in training camp. Like, he got physical a few times. Secondly, while I am a huge fan of Reek, he's drawn a little bit of ire from 12s this week with a couple tough plays on the 49ers eventual game-winning drive. He got kind of mixed up on a Ricky Pearsall double move, gave the Niners a 47-yard gain, got him in business. And there was a jump ball. He was right there for it. And then the Niners backup tight end Jake Tomjus, who had never caught an NFL pass before, came down with the jump ball, which didn't effectively end it. The Seahawks had a chance, but they fumbled it, as we talked about a minute ago. The other thing, and it's something that Najee piggybacked on, was the idea that the run game is something that the Seahawks have to really get going, from a standpoint that K9, Kenneth Walker III, had 10 carries, 20 yards. Zach Charbonnet only went for 47, and this is a team that really redid their identity on trying to run the football, and it didn't show up. And Sam Darnold didn't go over 100 yards passing until the last drive. So that's my long rambling way of thinking. I think we're on the same page here, and it's going to be some interesting matchups, because in week 2, you just never quite know what's going to happen in that regard. Okay, so that's my little bit of a rant there. Jenna, I know that it's only week 2, and it's tough to kind of figure out who's going to look like what, but how do you see this one shaking out? And by the way, I do love the stadium out there. It's a beautiful place.
It is a beautiful stadium. Yeah.
But how do you see this one shaking out on Sunday morning for us here in Seattle?
Yes.
I also envy you guys, because West Coast sports time to me is elite. It is the most incredible sports time, especially with like Sunday Night Football ending and you can go right to bed. It's not midnight. I envy you guys a little bit there, but I think that the Steelers win this game just based on what we saw from the offense last week and what they're looking to build on it. I think it's going to be a close matchup for sure, but I think kind of one of the biggest factors in this, and I know we've talked about this a little bit, but I think it's going to be the Steelers' run defense knows they can play a lot better, and they're going to look to do that a lot against a Seahawks team, like you mentioned, that is really looking to run the ball. So I think the Steelers run defense is going to be a little bit stouter. They also didn't force any turnovers, and that's like the characteristic of who this defense wants to be. The turnover came from special teams last week. So I think you're going to see maybe 1 or 2 just defensive turnovers with TJ Watt doing what TJ Watt does. Maybe one of the linebackers coming in, maybe potentially an interception from Jalen Ramsey. He kind of had made some big plays last week for the team. But I see it being a close game. I do see it being a lot closer than I think people are anticipating. And there's obviously all the storylines and narratives and the overreactions about week 1. But yeah, I think the Steelers offense is going to continue to find their footing in this one. And I think that they're going to come away with a win. But I think Seattle keeps it really close and makes it very interesting, because that's also the way the Steelers have played for the last God knows how many years I've been covering this team at this point.
No, sure. Yeah, it's similar to the Seahawks. I think they've had a 9-8 or 10-7 record the last 3 years. It's kind of crazy in that regard. Najee, what do you got in this prediction?
I would like to say that I like to think of these games as rationally, and I did pick the Seahawks to beat the Niners last week. That being said, I just can't. I think the Seahawks have to really upend the whole entire offense as far as what happened last week.
Sure. Yeah, there was a lot.
There was a lot of issues that we kind of saw. There was kind of like, what are you doing type things. We saw a lot of what are you doing type things last year with Geno Smith, but they were very different than what the question marks that we have right now. I will agree that the game will be close. I will also side with her. I think the Steelers will end up winning the game, mostly because I just don't see. I want the running game to get better. Okay. For the Seahawks running game, and I just don't see Pittsburgh's their front four, at least T.J. Watt and Highsmith. I just don't see that initial push happening from the front four.
Sure. Yeah. I think that yeah. Okay. Here's what I'm gonna do. I think the score is gonna be 20-16. I just don't know who's going to win. I think I'm going to say the Steelers with this caveat that I think the Seahawks will win the next two after it. I think they'll go on the road and beat Arizona on Thursday night. Or excuse me, the Saints come here first, then they'll go out to Arizona on Thursday night and win that game. I think the Seahawks team can be very good and will be very good. I think they will go to the playoffs.
If the Seahawks lose this one and then the Saints, we're ringing alarm bells immediately.
Yeah, sure, but I don't think that happens. I mean, this one will be tough for all the reasons Jenna's talked about and we've talked about. But yeah, I agree with you. I think it's going to be close. I think the Seahawks defense is the real deal. I think we'll see them show out. It's just a matter of if the offense can get enough points, and that's kind of what this team's predicated on. So yeah, interesting prediction. I don't think we've ever had that. We're usually a little bit of homers here sometimes with these predictions. Jenna, it's your team. You cover them. Is there anything we're missing? Anything we didn't ask you about this team that you think might be interesting to head into this matchup?
No, I think you got everything. That was really good. Just I DK obviously saying, hey, this is not any sort of like, he's not coming in with any extra juice, or at least that's what he's telling us. It was interesting last week, the Aaron Rodgers going back to face the Jets. That felt like a little bit of a different situation to me. I think this is just one of those like, hey, I had some really great memories here. I have some really great people I know here. These guys, molded me, and I have so many positive things, but I'm with a new team, a new chapter now. But that's kind of the sense that I'm getting with DK in this game.
Yeah, the interesting thing about DK's departure, it was the whole demanding of a trade, widely rumored in Seattle anyway, that Russell Wilson was in his ear a little bit and talking a little bit. And certainly that's not why he got traded to the Steelers. They offered the best compensation as far as the draft pick was concerned. But it was interesting. It was much different than Geno Smith's departure, which was they offered him a pretty fair deal, and he just this camp didn't get back to them. So I don't think it'll be animosity, except that we've watched DK for years, and I love the fire he plays with, and I expect nothing less in the game on Sunday. I have to ask you, is Zeke still there?
He's curled up under the desk.
Okay, we won't make you wake Zeke up. If Zeke was like right there, I was gonna say, can we see like Zeke? But Jenna, I can't thank you enough for the time. We really appreciate it, and hey, it's gonna be a fun one for you to enjoy out there on Sunday in Western PA.
Oh, we're looking forward to it. Thank you guys so much for having me. It was a pleasure to join you.
Yeah, you know what? I said it off camera, but I will be crazy enough to say it on camera. Maybe we'll see you in that Steelers-Seahawks Super Bowl rematch. What do you say one day?
Ooh, let's do it. The storylines of that, my goodness, that would just be unreal.
Absolutely. Jenna, thank you so much. Good luck this week.
Thank you. You guys too.
You got it.
Thanks.
That was Jenna Harner from WPXI, longtime friend, just one of my favorite people, not just in this business, but in general. It's one of those things like, especially in our business, you may not talk to somebody for a little while, but you send a text and somebody I haven't talked to in probably, I think we were saying, has it been 4 years? And a text, we're going to come on. Yeah, sure. And she does an amazing job. Check out her stuff. Just search her, Jenna Harner, on social media. You'll see her great coverage on the Steelers, and I think that'll be especially beneficial as we head into this matchup. I'm very torn on my prediction a minute ago when I said like which way that 20-16 goes, but I do think it's the same thing that I said all off season, Naj, that I think the Seahawks are going to be I think I was like, they're going to be in a lot of 17, 13, 20-10 games.
Yeah.
Of course, they lost 17.
Yeah, and we saw what happened last week.
I think it's going to be similar. Like, I think the Seahawks defense is much better than the Jets, so I don't think you're going to see the Steelers quite pick them apart for 30-something points. Right. But at the same time, I think the Steelers defense is, pretty darn close to the Niners, and it's going to be tough unless they've really figured things out, which the running game, if you watched a lot of some of the film, a lot of it was just picking the wrong gaps. Like there was some good blocking there.
Right.
So it'll be interesting to see if that's something that is adjusted this week.
I think it'll be interesting. When we're talking about revenge games, I think DK Metcalf should be happy the game is in Pittsburgh and not Seattle, because I know a lot of people loved having DK in Seattle, but also was getting a little bit they drew a little tired, a little weary of DK and the antics as far as like as far as like maybe scuffles on the field with Niners players or just any player as it were. But what I will say one thing I did notice in the box score is that Justin Fields did have a lot of yards rushing for the Jets against the Steelers last week. Now, what we did see last week, we saw Jalen Milroe hit the field once or twice.
That's a good point. And Sam Darnold had the longest rush of the day for the Hawks.
Which is unfortunate.
It was unfortunate. It was 9 yards. But I like where your head's at.
But we could see, and I'm not going to plant any ideas, but, Jalen Milroe is very, very, very fast. He's probably the fastest quarterback I've seen since Michael Vick. Wow. As far as speed itself goes.
It's close. I mean, there's other guys, but you're right. It's like he's right there.
Exactly. I think if we're having, if we need situations where like the Seahawks need to maybe spell a couple runners and kind of shake up the thing a little, shake up the play call a little bit, I think we can see Jalen Milroe. He may end up with his first rushing touchdown. I think that'd be great for Seattle. They can scheme we
only saw him very sparingly.
Very sparingly, and I know he's a rookie. And you don't want to see him that often.
And that was script too.
Yeah, scripted exactly. But to rejuvenate this offense and maybe add a spark to this team. I know fantasy wise, you saw JSN had a big game. Last week when we saw DK Metcalf had a big game, a semi-big game last week too. But I think I know that the Seahawks want to score enough points. Enough points is a phrasing that we're using here. But I think when you find yourself in tough situations like they did at the end of last week's game, you find yourself wanting. It just leaves you wanting more,
right?
As a whole. I mean, and even just the defense itself, just kind of just like these, I don't want to say bonehead, but just odd situations happening on the defense.
Sure.
Feast of famine.
Yeah. I hear you there, and I think it's going to be a really close game, 10 a.m.
10 a.m. in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, we'll take it. And then they come home to play the Saints the week after. I think that, regardless, is a win. And I think it'd be nice if they could go 3-1 in September.
It would be nice.
But I think, this one's the toss-up. This one determines whether or not it's possible. Yeah. Because, I mean, listen, this is not a disrespect to Arizona, but, like, I don't know. The Seahawks just seem like a good matchup for them as far as positive for Seattle is concerned. And the Saints, I know they'll get a couple along the way, but they seem like they're still finding their way with Rattler and all that stuff.
I just hope that week one, I know it's week one, doesn't come back to bite the Seahawks in that I think of, playoff seeding, NFC West, the Niners playing them first week of the year. The Seahawks don't play the Niners again until the very end of the year. Mm-hmm. I hope there's just not any weirdness. We talk about teams in Seattle coming close to the playoffs and not making it.
Yeah.
Seahawks,
right.
I just hope there's not a situation where that comes back to bite them, given it being week one.
Absolutely. Really quick before we go, it's our favorite segment. It's not our favorite segment. Our favorite segment is Meet the Opponent, and I didn't bring that graphic up when Jenna joined.
We met the opponent. We
already met the opponent.
Yeah.
And, I wanted to see Zeke. We didn't see Zeke, but we
You know what we will see?
I'm going to ask Jenna for a picture of Zeke.
What we will see is also in our fantasy league, Niko and I are matching up against each other in the sleeper league, and I am projected to lose.
Well, here's the thing. Don't worry about projections. They don't mean anything. I just clicked the wrong thing there. Something that's going to help me in another league, and it's going to help you in this matchup. My advice is hold on to faith for K9. I know it was not a good showing last week, fantasy purposes or otherwise, but I think that when you look at it's one game, Niners are very good against the run, and he may not even have a big output on Sunday against Steelers. Maybe he does. But I'm saying hold on to K9 for the long haul. Don't figure it out. I think part of that, honestly, was just the lack of reps throughout training camp and even in the preseason games.
Yeah.
Because he was nursing back from an injury and things like that. So just hold on. Don't make it an outlet. Like if somebody offers you a good trade, but whatever, you got to do what you got to do. But hang on to K9. Don't waive him. Don't trade him unless you're in like a small 6-team league or something like that.
I just always
hold on to faith for K9 is my fantasy advice.
I think about in the KOMO league where we just noticed that just comedically some people would just put, for example, AJ Brown being on the trade block after like the first half of the Eagles game.
My favorite thing about that was somebody picked up who was it? I forget who they picked up, and I was like just sarcastically like, oh, so-and-so just won the league.
And that is the rallying cry.
Some of those people thought I was serious.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, I was totally kidding.
No,
this third string running back.
This is going to be a good matchup. Yeah. Niko and I,
we'll let you know what happens next week. We'll wager something.
We'll wager something. If my head is shaved next week, then you'll know why.
Don't do that.
I'm not going to do that.
Don't do that.
But yeah, because I won't lose.
Well, I'm not shaving my head if I lose.
We don't have to shave heads. I'm just saying, but it'll be a fun game. She mentioned also West Coast kickoff times elite per usual. I used to live on the East Coast. I can tell you, I love waking up at 7 a.m., getting a quick workout, and then watching the first game at 10 a.m. Or sleeping in.
I'm going nowhere near a gym, but I've got a 3-year-old that'll wake me up.
Yeah.
Football.
Go
Seahawks.
Yeah.
I'll ask for. And it's fun. The funny part is he has a couple Seahawks jerseys, but he asked for the Julio jersey to watch football. Julio Rodriguez, of course.
Interesting.
Yeah. Well, hey, we hope you enjoyed that preview. Thanks again to Jenna Harner. Really great insight. I love that. You can go on Twitter or X, whatever. You can see her right there talking to Aaron Rodgers. Really cool stuff. And then to bring that insight here for us, and of course combine it with me doing the same thing with Najee at the Seahawks, and kind of see where those opinions line up. But they kind of did line up for this one. It's going to be a dogfight. I'm hoping
I'm wrong. I'm hoping the Seahawks are not 0-2 to start the year.
Yeah, here's the thing. We all hope that. If that happens, I'm not that. Of course, anybody will worry, but I'm not. I don't think it's like the be all end all. Like I think they'll be okay after that.
Sure.
The schedule still widely opens up.
It's true.
And I think in our preview, I said they could start 2-2, but then it opens up after that. Let me put it to you this way: if they lose this one, they're 0-2. I still think they go 2-2, and I still think they win 10 games.
What are you saying that Aaron Rodgers said? RELAX, relax.
That's what I might be saying next week. Hopefully not. But hey, for Jenna, for Najee, I'm Niko. I'll join you for rapid reaction right after this one wraps up on Sunday. Go Hawks!
Go Hawks!